When we look at chronic fatigue and autoimmune conditions, we often find that the body is trapped in a state of metabolic stall. That's in the mitochondria. Now, this is rarely caused by one thing, but rather a perfect storm of environmental triggers and multiple systems in the body. Now, one such contributor can be stealth pathogens like Epstein-Barr virus, EBV, and Lyme-related bacteria like Borrelia, and also mycoplasma. Now, in this video, I'm going to cover why do some people have these pathogens. I'm also going to cover how these pathogens cause your chronic fatigue. And of course, I'm going to talk about what can you take and what can you do to improve your energy. That's a really big one. So let's get started. So first, let's look at how these pathogens gain entry into your body and how they effectively hijack your cellular machinery that causes exhaustion in you. So they really slow down your body. Now, how these pathogens enter your body is actually through an infection called stealth infection, because they've evolved a clever way to enter your body without being found and sounding the alarms of your immune system. That's what makes them so unique, that stealth ability. Now, glandular fever, the Epstein-Barr virus, they belong to the herpes family. Now, most people are exposed to these in childhood or under times of stress. Often kids get in teenage years when they're doing exams, or nutritional deficiencies, and the virus reactivates later in life. It enters through the epithelial cells in the throat and hides out in the B lymphocytes. And they're the very cells that are meant to identify and kill those pathogens. Lyme's like pathogens, typically they transmit via vectors like ticks, but there is significant evidence to suggest that the bacteria can persist in other environments or can be passed through other modes like blood transfusions or sexual transmission or other biting insects like mites or mosquitoes. Now, once inside, they have this corkscrew shape that travel deep into the connective tissue, the joints, or even in the nervous system. Mycoplasma, they're the smallest free-living organisms, and they lack cell walls, which make them easy to slide into soft tissue. They often transmit via respiratory droplets, and because they lack a cell wall, they often they're resistant to common antibiotics that target the normal bacteria or cells or pathogens. Now, a little note on transmission of Lyme's related bacteria. Now, Borrelia, it's common, got other co-infections like Babesia or Bartonella. The mainstream narrative is quite narrow and there's a lot of mystery in it. However, in clinical practice and emerging literature, we're seeing evidence that the vector story is not complete. So if these bacteria were only transmitted by one specific tick in the forest, we would not see the levels of chronic persistent illness across all populations around the world or geographic areas around the world as we do today. So how do they cause chronic fatigue? So they hijack the cells, and once inside, these pathogens stop cells from doing its primary job, producing energy. It's all about the mitochondria. Number one, they sabotage the mitochondria. That's what they really do. Your mitochondria are the core of the cells, absolutely the key to energy production. They produce ATP, and that's the fuel that keeps you awake and functioning. These stealth pathogens consume your resources, specifically your ATP and your NAD+, and they use that to replicate themselves. Essentially, they're stealing your energy. They're feeding on you like a parasite. When your mitochondria are starved, you experience that kind of absolute exhaustion and that fatigue that you just can't get through the day, and that chronic fatigue. And sleep doesn't fix it. Number two, intercellular toxins. These pathogens don't just sit there, they secrete metabolic waste products into your cells. This forces your body to constantly divert energy away from repair, and it pushes it into other things that it needs to do. And that results in the brain fog and the nervous system becoming inflamed, and there's that lingering metabolic toxins, and it just goes on and on. Number 3, molecular mimicry. This is when the autoimmune link becomes clear and there's an autoimmune connection to chronic fatigue. Some fragments of these pathogens look suspiciously like your own protein sequences. The immune system, in its desperation to destroy the pathogens, creates autoantibodies that mistakenly attack the own healthy tissue of your body. And that's what goes on in molecular mimicry and autoimmunity. And this is thought to be the trigger for many cases of thyroid autoimmunity and joint pain and even neurological conditions, that just intense brain fog. Number 4, the chronic inflammation loop. Because these bugs live inside your cells, your immune system can't see them to clear them, but it knows something's wrong. And this keeps your inflammatory cytokines, the chemical messages of your immune system, at a low persistent hum. Now, chronic low levels inflammation is biologically expensive. It's energy draining. It pulls resources away from your hormones and your neurotransmitters, and leading to that mood swings because you're so exhausted, and sleep disturbances as well, often seen in patients. Essentially, you're being forced to run a high intensity survival program just to deal with that. And it's 24/7, ongoing, constantly. Your body has no idle mode, it has no rest, which leaves you with zero energy, right? You're probably watching this feeling, yes, that's me. When you're dealing with chronic exhaustion, autoimmunity, or persistent health issues, it often feels like you're chasing your tail around, trying to get solutions and just keep going around. So what do you do to fight these bugs? How do you get better and get more energy? How do you do that? Firstly, let's talk about how do we test these, and more importantly, how do we support the body to regain control. Our standard medical tests often miss these infections because they look like high levels of active autoantibodies and acute infections. Stealth pathogens, however, live intracellularly, meaning they hide inside your cells, giving your immune system constant high alert feedback. So the tests have to be specific. Now, instead of only looking at standard markers, which almost always miss them, but we can dig deeper. We can look at the immune load, like functional testing can look at inflammatory markers like C-reactive protein, highly sensitive one, or cytokines, interleukin-6. And when the body is fighting a cellular deep war, these markers are often persistently elevated. So it's not the only test, but it is a marker of one inflammatory state. There's also specialist panels. Sometimes we look for deeper immune signatures that suggest molecular mimicry, and this is where your immune system is so confused by the pathogens that it starts turning on your own tissue, as I discussed previously, and this is a common driver for the autoimmunity. So even though we've got those stealth pathogens, we also need to look at other connecting components. This is where I'm going with this. Now, these tests include cytokines or chemokine profiling, T cell analysis looking for cell-mediated immunity, and tests commonly like ELSA spot or T cell assays. Microbiome testing and metabolic mapping is also helpful because these infections thrive when the gut is compromised. Looking at the microbiome helps understand why your immune system is stuck in the fail mode. Now, the microbiome is connected to these stealth pathogens, most definitely. Probably if you have those, you'll find you have gut issues. Now, the path to move more energy is addressing the stealth pathogens. Healing from chronic low-grade infections isn't about using a nuclear bomb and just killing it all. Most definitely that's not the way. I see it time and time again. It's about restoring your own internal ecosystem, calming your immune inflammatory storm before we try and clean up pathogens is quite key. We must lower the systemic inflammation in your immune system so it can actually function. And this often involves high-dose omega-3 fatty acids, particularly EPA, or targeted plant-based anti-inflammatories like curcumin. They're really common ones to discuss, which they really regulate the inflammatory pathways. But in my experience, they're not enough to take just only one, and the standard doses as well is not enough. I recommend getting an experienced practitioner to guide you through with therapeutic doses. Number 2, support your immune modulators rather than just boosting the immune system. This is quite key. We can sometimes make autoimmune symptoms worse and everything flare up more because we focus on stimulating, but we should be modulating. 2 medicinal mushrooms like turkey tail, chugga as well, or reishi. They teach your immune system how to distinguish between your own cells and the stealth invaders. Cat's claw, cryptolepis, or even Japanese knotweed is also really wonderful combination with those herbs. Once again, dosage, quality is really important. Number 3, nutritional foundations to help the stealth pathogens be removed. Now, they often feed on specific minerals, leading to deficiencies. I love to focus on zinc, vitamin D as a foundation. Essentially, they're antiviral in their response. CoQ10 or ubiquinol, that also helps patients get their mitochondria kick-started and revitalize the cells to give patients some energy reserves to start the fight. Now, these nutrients do not kill the pathogens, but they do make the terrain of your body much less inhabitable for them, which is key. Now, while they also give your cells a little power as well to reclaim your energy. Number 4, microbiome integrity. So 80% of your immune system live in the gut, right? If your gut lining is compromised, it acts like a sieve, allowing toxins to drift into the bloodstream and just keep recycling around. They put that workload on your body. It's already exhausted, so it can't handle more toxins coming into the system. So the gut mucosa lining is really a non-negotiable. Now, we say the microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. If your body is healthy, well-nourished, and free from heavy metals and mold overload, these pathogens have nowhere to hide. We don't just fight the bug, we rebuild the environment that inhabits you so they can no longer persist and carry on and multiply. To understand how you can begin auditing your own health and what steps to do next, this has only just scratched the surface, so I continue carrying on with this video right here.